Now, what did Swedenborg say happens immediately after we die?
So the thing he had that was closest to a classic near-death experience, it's actually, our channel is called Off the Left Eye, and that's taken from this experience where he says that he was being shown the dying process, but able to keep his rational faculty enough that he could see what happened. And he said that initially his breathing slowed down. He could feel his spirit start to pull out of his body. Like you could feel kind of almost a pop when it was coming out. And then he was fully in the spirit. So he went there through a shortened version of the process that we all go through. He said that at first he was in a semi-conscious state where he was just really feeling things. And in that state, you are surrounded by heavenly angels. So those are angels that are, like we were just talking about, opened to the third level of heaven. So that they are love-centered, love-focused. The same angels that are around little kids are around you, and they protect you. They make sure that you don't have no disturbing thoughts come close, that they try to hold you in sort of the last good thing you were thinking before you die, and they make sure that you're safe and your transition is smooth. From there, when you start to stir and wake up, they leave, and what Swedenborg calls spiritual angels, or people who are open on that second level or truth-oriented, they show up. And what happened with Swedenborg was, he said, it seemed like a covering was peeled off of his left eye. And that's when he gained the use of his spiritual sight. Everything in the spiritual world is symbolic. It all like the way everything looks and appears has a deeper meaning to it. So the left eye, again, we're talking about the human body and its significance. The left side of us corresponds to the intellectual or thinking part of us. So in the eye, to the understanding in there. So a covering taken off that is like, you're seeing the truth clearly now. And that's when he started to revive and be able to know he was in the spiritual world. And this is what happens to each of us. Finally, from there, often what happens for people, depending on what their state is when they cross over, but often what happens is they leave those angels, and natural angels, or the sort of the simplest angels, come around, and that's where we feel most comfortable, because that's the closest to the state we were when we were on Earth. And then from there, the angels don't want to leave anybody. So Swedenborg says they will stay with you for as long as you want. They'll do whatever you want. If you say, I want to go see what heaven is like, I want to go and learn these things, yeah, they'll do it. And I think you see this some in near-death experiences when people have all these questions and they get these questions answered. But then we start to make our own way. At some point, we have to go and discover like who it is we have become and who we want to be. So there's this period of traveling through what Swedenborg calls the world of spirits, which is a place that's below heaven, where you start out. And that's where we get kind of, a centrifuge. Like a centrifuge is like you spin around some liquid, and if it's mixed up, heavier parts go to the bottom, lighter parts go to the top. We kind of get ourselves centrifuged, so that if we're basically want to live a good life, but we're kind of held back by some egos or some ego issues we have, or something like that, it's a period where we clean that out, and we get it so that we're our authentic self. So you say what you mean, and you are what you want to be. You get sorted out, you get rid of all the gunk that's weighing you down, and then from there you go in search of your home. Everybody has a home in heaven, because each of us, as I said, are a unique form of love. Like we are some kind of love, and the understanding that comes from that is not like anybody else ever has been or will be. And there's some place in heaven that is the perfect fit for us. And there's some community that's full of people who are similar to us. So it's similar enough that we will feel like, these are my people. Like this is I feel home with these people. So you travel through the spiritual world. Everyone's you visit different communities. People are friendly, but when you're like, I want to keep moving. I'm not home yet, until finally you find a place where you feel like, oh, this is it. And there's even actually literally a house there that's waiting, because the house is a correspondence with the mind. So over the course of our life on Earth, we've essentially been building this heavenly house. And then you get there, move in, and then life really begins. Because as Swedenborg says, there's much more to do and learn and see in the afterlife than there is here. It's kind of like this was like, well, getting ready for life, and there's where it really goes.
I get so many questions. But one question I want to ask right now is, okay, so if there's no reincarnation, in a sense, so where was I before I came down to this earth? What was I?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I would say, so, I mean, each of us, according to Swedenborg, is we are an expression of a particular aspect of the divine. So there's like the soul that's in me. I'm some kind of little. I'm not a piece of God, but I'm a thing that can receive a particular piece of God. Like there's a part of God that can express through me. And you could say the same thing, part of love that can express through you, express through me, that it can't in the same way through anyone else. So there was always like that latent potential for us. As far as like actually where we are, what are we, I don't know. That he doesn't address that.
Right. It's an interesting perspective. It's quite new, I feel like, in that spiritual community, to be honest. How has this teaching changed you?
Everything. It's changed everything about me. So I mean, the funny thing is that Swedenborg he talks about all this stuff that's way out there, like the heaven and spirits and afterlife, but really all of it is going back down to here's a way to live. I would say that there's 5 things that I most often will use to navigate my daily life. I just gave a talk about this, where I called them the 5 secrets of heaven. He didn't make that up, but I sort of feel like this is like condensing what he's done. I mean, first of all, like the concept that you are never going to die, that can affect your life in a couple of ways. First of all, it takes away your fear of dying. I would be afraid to die in that I wouldn't want to leave my daughter and my wife behind. I wouldn't. But as far as like what's actually going to happen to me, I kind of feel like, all right, I just had my birthday like 2 days ago, and I turned 39, and I was like getting closer to heaven. Like I'm moving along there. So that's nice. But then also, knowing that you're never going to die lets me focus on what's eternal instead of on what's temporary. So according to Swedenborg, like, obviously your body, as wonderful as it is, it's got a shelf life, but then even things like your rank in this world, the wealth that you have in this world, even your reputation, that stuff is temporary. The stuff that's going to stay with me forever is what kind of love I have and what kind of wisdom I've pursued and used. So I can be like investing in things that don't disappear. So that helps give me perspective. Even if I'm like, I had to go give a big speech recently, like in front of a bunch of people. And when I was putting it together, I was feeling nervous. I was like, is everyone going to like this? Is it going to go well? And I just had this moment of thinking, well, what's temporary about this and what's eternal about this? What they think of me, it's temporary. Sure, they'll think it for a little while. Eventually they'll forget it. I'll forget it. And when we get into the afterlife and everybody sees the big picture, doesn't matter. What's eternal, though, is if I can give them some good tools from this. It was about Swedenborg. If I can give them something that they go use and it changes their heart, that can stay with them forever. So what's more important? And my attitude going into this, if I can use this to say like, oh, I actually don't care. I'm not trying to be better than these people. I'm just trying to do something useful. That stays forever. So that's secret number 1, and that can affect you, because knowing where something is going affects how you live it. Why do you care if you're in school? Why do you care about trying to do well there? Because you're going to go get a job later. If you didn't know that, you wouldn't understand. So being able to see a basic outline, I'm sure there's so much that I don't understand, and I'm still going to learn about how afterlife works, but knowing the basics, I can orient, like, here's what's important and here's what's not important. Number 2, the influence of spiritual world on your mind, and not just the positive influence, but the negative influence as well. I struggled a lot with anxiety and depression. And in reading Swedenborg and his description of how the afterlife is just full of people, it's just all of us that have gone there. Some people are kind and loving, some people are not. And they try to harm you and take advantage of you. Just like here, where my phone is always ringing with calls from people who are trying to scam me. They're just calling and or I get emails all the time where people are saying, "Hey, don't you want to give me your credit card number? I found a bunch of money and I'll get." They're just trying to take advantage of you. So it is with the thoughts and feelings in your head. Like some of them are coming from a loving place in the spiritual world. Some of them is just people, same kind of thing. So I've been able to, with the negative thoughts that I get and the worries and the fears that I get, I've been able to just say, no, I don't need that. I know where that's coming from. I don't need it. Just like a spam call. So that's been super useful to me. Secret number 3 is that problems are okay. Problems are okay. There's this thing that I mentioned before called divine providence, which is God's directing of life so that not that things that happen in life aren't painful and aren't hard and sad at times, but ultimately they're going to turn out to be okay, because providence will always use the challenges we have to, even though there's temporary suffering there, it will make it so that eternally we benefit from that. So it will change who I am for the better, even if it's difficult. So I can know it's all right. Whatever happens, something good eventually is going to come out of this. Then there's also one of the secrets is usefulness is happiness, which is, like I said, with each little cell in the body wanting to give what it has to the body and receive everything, there's a certain joy you get in knowing you are doing something good for someone and thinking about the impact that has. That joy is the foundation of heaven. So there's all kinds of joy we get from all sorts of things, and they're all good. But the one that grows forever and is the one that on which all the others rest is that joy in being useful. So I can look for that in my life and say, when am I feeling that? How do I cultivate that? How do I make that a priority in my life? And then the final one I use is, I call the secret, bad things and good things both feel good. So Swedenborg talks about what he calls the pleasures of insanity, that you can, like, if you're mad at someone for how they're driving and you want to yell at them, it sort of feels good to be mean to people sometimes. If it can feel good to cheat people and mock people, whatever it is, you look out at the world. Why is everyone doing such terrible things to each other all the time? Because it feels good. Because people want to do it. It makes them feel powerful. It makes them, whatever it is, just because it feels good doesn't necessarily mean it's good. So it gives me the chance to look inside myself and really try to say, okay, even though I like all these things, are there any of these that are actually making someone else miserable? Is there anything in here that is actually blocking me from heaven, which is a love for everyone? So I will use that as well. But those are I think the main ways in which, moment to moment, I will use Swedenborg's teachings to live differently than I would if I didn't have them.
To watch the full video, click the link below, and I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel.